have given a name to my pain. The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill
The Bat of Gotham.
You don't really think you'll win, do you?
I'm Batman.
Hello and welcome to episode 155 of the Batman on Film podcast. BOF is the sponsor as well as a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network. Check out all the shows over at batmanpodcastnetwork.com and follow our Twitter at BatPodNetwork. If you're listening to us on iTunes, if you take the time to rate and review the show, we'll read it on the air. BOF is also now on Patreon. If you like what we do here at BOF, whether it's the podcasts, vlogs, or the website itself, and you want to help support us, if you're so inclined, head over to patreon.com/BatmanOnFilm and sign up. I'm the host of the BOF podcast, Ryan Haas, and on tonight's show, we are going to discuss all the crazy shenanigans that went down when BOF crashed New York Comic Con 2019. And here to do that with me is none other than the man himself, Peter Verra. How are you doing, Pete?
Dude, I am still recuperating from New York Comic Con.
Yeah, I don't know if you can tell from my, typical peppy and chipper demeanor here, but I'm dead on the inside.
It was pretty exhausting. Ryan handled himself pretty well in the big city, so he
I did all kinds of stuff.
You did a lot of things. You got a full tri-state experience. Yeah,
like you, me, and BOF's very own Eric Holtzman covered the convention, and you guys were there a day here, a day there, or 1, 2, 3 days or whatever. But I did every single day because that's what I was there for.
Ryan was the only one who did all 4 days.
Yeah, and it was my first big con like that. Yeah,
it was, and the Javits Center is pretty big, and we also did the official Batman on Film New York City Joker watch party. I think it was on the Saturday of Comic-Con.
It was on the Saturday. And yeah, if you're listening to this show and you're like, Joker came out, where's your show about Joker? Don't worry, it's coming. Patience, yes. That Joker movie, I tell you what, that's a heavy movie. And
I'm still thinking about it.
Yeah, it deserves a little bit of a
still
breather.
Listening to the score too.
I want to get the score.
It's cheap. I think it's like $11.
Yeah.
I bought it on iTunes.
Since New York Comic Con was huge and we covered it, I thought it would be cool if we did a little episode about all of the things that we did, and we've got some exclusive cool interview stuff coming later in this same show, and then the episode after this will of course be our Joker review episode, and that'll maybe give the listeners a little time to see it twice or see it once if you're busy. I would love to see it a second time before we record, but the way it's looking, I might end up seeing it a second time after we record, which I don't know. It'll be fun. Actually, it'll probably give me some things to think about going into my second viewing. So, but non-spoiler thoughts, just in terms of the experience, we'll get the Joker stuff out of the way first. Yeah, we saw it at the BOF watch party on Saturday right in the middle of New York Comic Con, and it was awesome. It was awesome. You booked us a theater on 34th Street.
DAMC 3414, yes.
Mm-hmm. Which was great. I mean, it was the first
IMAX.
In IMAX.
It was great. It looked fantastic.
It was a crazy theater. You had to kind of go up 2 or 3 flights
before
you could even. Yeah, like the first floor was where you buy tickets. The second floor was
New York,
concessions.
Stacked.
Yeah, the third floor is like where they take your tickets, and then like the next floor was where the actual theater was. It was pretty awesome.
But, I guess when you haven't been there before, it's a little more unusual. But I've been to the theater several times, so it's even though I live in New Jersey, it's kind of like my second home.
Yeah, for me, it was like a completely new thing. I'm like, oh man, this is all discombobulated and weird, but it was cool. But yeah, a big group of us got to meet up and got to meet some listeners and stuff that people that I've interacted with on Twitter a bunch that just were at the watch party, and it was great to talk to them and get their feedback on the show and just experience something like Joker together as a group. It
was a good
York.
watch party because of the movie. You know, it was even heightened by that. Like the Justice League watch party was okay.
Right.
So, I mean, you threw one of those. So this is a totally different experience. Like after the movie, we were all like, "What'd you think? What was that? Whoa, whoa, whoa!" Oh,
yeah. I think our minds were pretty much blown. Yeah, watching it all like that.
You did a big exhale, and you're like, "Wow, okay."
Mm-hmm. I think I did a big inhale before the movie started, and I didn't exhale until the movie was over.
And meanwhile, like you turn your head, and there's Blade running Reno D just smiling ear to ear, whittling because he's a definitive Joker fan.
So Reno sat next to me, and I was and you also sat next to me, Pete. And weren't there a couple moments during Joker where where we were just looking at each other like, oh my God, are you as shocked?
Well, those last 20 minutes of that movie are really something else.
Like, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Yeah. I can't wait to get into it. That'll be fun to unpack. But before we unpack Joker, we definitely need to unpack all the stuff that went down at New York Comic Con, because we covered it a lot. We did a lot. So I thought maybe we just kind of run down like every day what we did and kind of discuss what it was like. I mean, the first day, unfortunately, was pretty much just me, and then Eric later on.
I threw Ryan into a New York City taxi, told him to get to the Javits Center, and that was the start of his day.
Yeah, so, you were like, I got to go to work, so have fun in New York. And I was like, Pete, I don't want this to be one of those Home Alone 2 kind of situations where I just kind of get lost and stuff.
You're never lost in Manhattan if you can ask somebody how to get to Penn Station. Remember that?
Yeah. And that's what it felt like after doing that commute for 4 days.
Yeah.
But yeah, the convention was Thursday, October 3rd through Sunday, October 6th, and that on that first day, like you walk in, and the first thing I did, of course, was I went straight to the DC booth to see what that was all about, and they had. It was definitely Harley Quinn and Birds of Prey was like a huge focal point of the convention, because. And
you were able to snag some pictures.
Yeah, like, so if you go on my Twitter, it should still be my pinned tweet. I tried to do the same kind of thing that I did for the Bowling Green Batman conference, where I've just got a big thread of pictures and info of what we covered, and you can just it's a big thread all in one spot.
It helped me get around the con, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's going to help me remember what in the heck we all did. So, but yeah, as soon as we went in, I went straight to the DC booth, and they had Birds of Prey posters and banners, and they had they had the costumes of the main characters from the movie on display. Oh, you know what? This is but since BOF episode 154, there has been a Birds of Prey trailer that came out, and we haven't even talked about that. Isn't that crazy?
We've been so busy.
We've been so busy. Let's take a minute and talk about that. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I love the tone. I love the
It feels very
visuals.
Amanda Connor.
Yeah, it does. I love the visuals. I love the vibe. It feels like a Amanda Connor crossed with the Suicide Squad 1.
Yeah, because the trailer felt very Suicide Squad 1. That first San Diego Comic-Con trailer.
Yeah, we probably saw Jared Leto's last cameo as a paper target. I stole that from Rick's shoe.
That was Rick's. That was Rick's baby.
Yeah.
I really liked Huntress. I would appreciate just the little bit that I saw, but like it seems to be very faithful. I know people are concerned of costumes. The Black Canary looks like a rock star, and Huntress looks like a badass, and Montoya looks like a detective who's ready to retire. So I don't see what the issue is here. Is it all because Cassandra Cain is a kid and not Batgirl, and Black Mask is maskless? Like
I think that's the bottom line. Just watch the movie. I think a lot of people are just a little miffed because it's not my blank. It's not my Cassandra Cain. It's, they're calling it Birds of Prey, but really it's Gotham City Sirens. I was kind of in
Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey.
Pretty much. Like I mean, well, that's not the actual title. The title of the movie is that crazy.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah. But, I just, I'm going to keep making these comparisons. It is no different than when they make a new comic book title and they're like, hey, let's kind of shake things up in the comics a little bit and do, let's take Harley Quinn and put people together and do this and do something new.
Like Harley and her gang of Harleys.
Yeah. Which they're also going to do, next year, was that not announced this weekend too? Where they're going to have a Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey comic book come out next year.
I think I do remember seeing something like that.
Yeah, with the same kind of lineup of characters.
I mean, I read Batgirl and the Birds of Prey. I read Suicide Squad. I was reading Suicide Squad, and I read Harley Quinn. And I look forward to the new Suicide Squad, Tom Taylor's new Suicide Squad title that's coming out too. So this strikes a fancy. It's very interesting to see her in a team dynamic. Well, ideally I prefer Harley as a henchman because I just think her and the Joker work really well together. I'll take her in this incarnation though. It's worked. I mean, even Amanda Connor's Harley Quinn I had to warm up to. Yeah. So I understand where people are coming from, but this seems very accurate to just everything in general. And I'm looking forward to see what this Black Mask is like. I can't speak.
Yeah, the two things there is that Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn is just so electric on screen. Like you just want to see what she does next and how she works her way through things.
Yeah, from the laugh to everything.
Yeah,
body language.
And I could get that in the trailer. And yeah, Ewan McGregor as Black Mask. I'm just super intrigued by this, and he just seems like to take a phrase from the great John Beerley, he already seems like a kooky hoot. So
I'm also looking forward to see what Zaz is like in this movie. I mean, we only got a glimpse of him in the Nolan trilogy.
He'll probably just be another bit type role, I guess, but maybe he could be.
I keep looking at the trailer to see how many scars he has. So he's got a few. He's not all carved up, but it's interesting that someone like Zaz can get 2 movies in 2 separate universes. Of all the characters, Zaz.
And he was on TV.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yes, he was. So he's had 3 live action interpretations already. It's quite the feat for a B-lister.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But yeah, I mean, I think it's exciting, and it's coming sooner than you think. Like February is not that far away, really. So the costumes, getting to see them up close and personal, they're cool. They fit with the world, and I think if you're concerned about like they don't look superhero-y enough, like maybe just watch the movie. Like
maybe they shouldn't though. I mean, Black Canary and Huntress are pretty vigilante. I know Huntress she's been elaborated a lot lately, but I see her operating as a low-level street enforcer. I can dig this, motorcycle boat. Like, I mean, that's who she is, though. She has a crossbow. Yeah. Like, are you upset that she doesn't have pointy little bat-like ears? Like, I don't know. Yeah. The biker helmet worked.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Black Canary evolves a little bit throughout the film because just the little that we know about her character trajectory in the movie, we know that she starts out as she's like a singer in Black Mask's club. Actually, I think it's called the Black Mask Club. Okay. I think that was revealed this weekend. So, and I think some of that she's a singer stuff is either part of her backstory or part of her recent backstory or something like that.
It would be awesome if we can get like some Iceberg Lounge versus Black Mask Club action in this movie.
That would be awesome. But
I'm dying for a little Penguin.
I don't think we're going to get Penguin in that movie, but maybe Matt Reeves' movie.
But I did like the trailer. It was upbeat. It was intense. It seemed a lot of fun. I'm ready for this.
Yeah.
I am. I'm excited, especially coming off Joker. Aquaman, Shazam, Joker, and hopefully Birds of Prey. That's a pretty good run they've been on.
And then and look at that tone wise. Like those are all four of those are like completely different movies, completely different tones. And
Aquaman's
I think
like fantasy. Shazam's more like family oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Joker is more about mental issues, right?
Yeah.
And Harley Quinn and Birds of Prey is just, a good old fashioned action movie, it looks like.
Yeah. And with all, the spectacle
it seems very like Lethal Weapon to me. Like there's a lot of action, but there's funny moments in it.
Lethal Weapon, but with all girl cast. Yeah. Yeah. I'm down for it. I think it looks like a blast, to be honest. So they had Birds of Prey stuff all over the place. I think on the last day they had like a surprise appearance by the cast. They just, Margot Robbie and everybody else except for Huntress.
They showed up the day we did Wonder Woman Bloodline interviews.
Did they? I thought it was okay. Jeez.
No, because remember, like I was talking to a guy, and I was like, "Hey man, what's going on? What do you know?" And he's like, "The cast of Birds of Prey might show up."
I think it was the next day.
Because then I told you, and you were like, "No way!" I was like, "Yeah," or was it? Yeah,
I think it was the.
We knew they were showing up. We just didn't know when.
Yeah.
Or we did know when. I don't remember when. Everything blurs together.
We knew it could happen, and then it did happen.
Or was it? Yeah, it might have been the next day. Because you know what? We had the Joker watch party.
Yes.
But
it was on Saturday.
Right.
It was on
Saturday.
Saturday.
Right. We're conveying it wrong, but
it was on Saturday.
Yeah, I
just confirmed it with myself. Yeah, it was on Saturday. But
yeah. So
and they signed posters and stuff. It was cool. So that was the Harley Quinn stuff. They also had like things where if you were a DC Universe subscriber, you could scan your badge, and every day you could get like different
has a
pins.
Collection of pins.
Like I know you could get different pins from the new Harley Quinn animated series, and that was a fun freebie. The first thing that I did when I, before I even saw the Birds of Prey costumes, is I took a beeline to the DC collectibles setup that they had there, and I started taking a bunch of pictures of all the Batman black and white statues.
That McFarlane one?
Oh my gosh.
I gotta buy that. That
so
might
in
be
the case,
hottest statue of the year.
Or next year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that one and the one with him in the chair.
Yeah.
With the cape draped around.
I think that one's already out, maybe.
That's a great looking one.
So so I think since they're about to hit the 100th statue in that line, they had a bunch of pre-existing current and future statues in this case. So like next year, I think the 100th statue is this crazy Todd McFarlane statue, but we're also going to get like a Frank Miller armored Batman. And then we're going to get like another Jim Lee statue that looks like that's straight out of Hush. It looks really awesome.
The Frank Miller Joker from Dark Knight Returns looks amazing.
I have that one. That's pretty awesome. I've got him, and I've got the matching Batman where he's like holding the chains.
I have the Michael Turner Batman from Identity Crisis, I believe it is, or it's the Supergirl storyline, and the Harley Quinn. Those are my black and whites.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's one of the few like major collectible things that I do is I collect the black and white statues because they're pretty affordable for what they are, and they're great. They look great together, and they're so wildly different. That brief, Norm Breyfogle statue is probably my favorite out of the whole line. It just looks so good.
I don't think I've ever seen it. I'll have to Google it.
You'll have to Google it. You can see a side view on one of the pictures on my Twitter, but yeah, I mean they nailed the cape. The cape looks great. on him. But while I was standing over there admiring the statues, I just happened to notice that the DC Collectibles executive creative director, Jim Fletcher, was just kind of standing there. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's Jim Fletcher.
Did you say anything to him?
Yeah, I talked to him for a minute, and then he asked me questions. Like, it's great when you meet people like that, because sometimes they want to just genuinely want to know what you think about stuff and what you think about the products and stuff. So like, he was like, oh, you're a collector of, you like the statues, and which ones do you like? Which ones do you have? And so I got to give him some feedback. I asked him, being an Azrael fan, I'm like, okay, you've got 100 statues. When is there any possibility that we could get an Azrael Batman statue? And he was like, it's on the list. So I don't know when it would be, but it's definitely on some list somewhere of possible Batman to do. And hopefully at some point in time, I don't know which one that would be, but hopefully at some point in time they'll do that. So
I don't think anything could make you happier.
Probably not. I would love that. They've started to do. They've already started to do those. They're doing those cowl replicas, and they're going to do a Azrael Batman cowl replica next year or late this year. So they're already doing that, which is cool. And that same day, on that Thursday, they also had a DC Collectibles panel, which was fun, because they. Jim Fletcher was on that as well, and they announced new figures and new statues and stuff like that. Like, they have that new line of Batman animated action figures, and they are making figures that weren't on the show, but it's like, what if X character or Y character?
I found that so interesting that they were doing that, making them in the Tim mold of like a
Tim mold. Yeah.
Thomas Wayne Batman. You had some great pictures on your Twitter feed.
Yeah, like I don't think the first figures in that line are out yet, but they will be soon. Mention it again. Yes, Azrael Batman is going to be one of those figures in the first line, but there were some new ones that got announced for New York Comic Con. Hush was one. Flashpoint Thomas Wayne Batman is another one. They're going to have like the vampire Batman from the Elseworld stories, and the ever so popular The Batman Who Laughs is also going to be
the most popular character in the history of comic books.
pretty much in recent memory, I would say. And but yeah, so that was great, just seeing the collectibles, and actually getting that panel was fun because it had Jim Fletcher, and it had some artists and sculptors on it that got to talk about the process of how they do what they do and all that kind of stuff. And then later in the day, I met up with Eric, and we got to see the Meet the Publishers panel. So we got to see Jim Lee and Dan DiDio just talk about like the state of DC and some of the books they announced. They showed off some things, like they talked about Young Justice a lot, and they were talking, I think the next day or the next couple of days in the DC Nation panel, they announced like a new Amethyst book or something like that. And they were talking about some of the new Brian Michael Bendis things with the Legion of Superheroes. That seemed to be a big thing that people were interested about.
I was reading comics on the train today, and I saw an advertisement for Bendis's Legion of Superheroes.
Yes.
And I said to myself, Bendis is doing everything under the sun with Superman, but yet he's writing a really cheesy kids Batman book, and it just drives me crazy.
Well, he was writing a kid-focused Batman book for the Walmart series. That was for the Walmart books.
I feel like it's wasting a good Bendis.
They talked about those Walmart books again in that publishers panel. They're really excited about the Walmart books.
I guess. I just feel bad that the comic shops get second fiddle so late, but that's my gripe.
Yeah. Well, yeah. They are, but it's good. They're making, they're kind of entryway comics. It's a different market. I get that part of it. And they are making it to where the comic stores eventually do get. Yeah.
At least they're doing that. That's all.
Yeah.
That was my biggest gripe when it happened. I was like, you're not sharing this with the comic shops. That's wrong.
Yeah.
We should be allowed to buy these books.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to go to Walmart to buy books. Go to comic shops.
Yeah, and I stopped doing them, getting them to myself because it was too much of a hassle to try to go to Walmart, find the book, and they actually had to have the book in stock, and then you had to keep going back and stuff, and I was like, man, this is like must be what it was like getting comics off a newsstand back in the day. Like you couldn't probably never keep up with anything, so
that's why they have gaps.
Yeah, but later that day on Thursday, me and Eric went to this DC Universe. They had a DC Universe preview press reception, which was really cool, and they announced a whole bunch of stuff there. So they brought up people from some of the different TV shows, and they brought like the heads of the DC Universe app up to talk about the new, the performance of the service over the last year, and as well as some things to look forward to. So, like, some of the obvious things were things like the Stargirl show. It's been shot, and it's, it seems like it's well on its way, and it's in post-production. Apparently Titans season 2 has gotten off to a really good start. Like, I think they said something about the first episode of Titans season 2 was like the most successful first week launch of an episode on the service or something like that.
That's great.
And they announced the release date of the new Harley Quinn animated series. It comes out. To see this. Yeah, it comes out on November 29th is when it premieres, and they showed us an exclusive clip of it. We weren't allowed to take any footage of it, but I'll just say that it was hilarious. Did
you see Ivy?
Yes.
And is she? Can you give me? I love Ivy.
Ivy's like Ivy's like the straight man to like Harley's wacky man. Right, it's like an Odd Couple kind of thing, I guess.
I'm dying to see some Poison Ivy.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's definitely going to test some people's like how far they think Harley Quinn can go, and a lot of people very well might think like, oh, okay, well, Harley Quinn just isn't for me, and it might not be, but for me, it's a cool extra. I see what they're doing. They're trying to.
She's not voiced by Tara Strong in this.
Right. No, it's Kaylee Cuoco from The Big Bang Theory.
Okay.
So they're clearly doing their own little new spin on it. They're trying to tap into. It's basically like Family Guy, but with Harley Quinn, where it's like super
zany.
It's zany. Oh, it's very zany, very irreverent, very adult, and like even more like very, very adult. Like adult humor and stuff like that, but it's also very tongue in cheek. I guess the best way I can describe it is like a Family Guy met the current Harley Quinn like solo comic book, but then also made it more adult.
Sounds like American Dad.
Yeah, I guess
they're all the same.
Yeah. But the clip they showed was hilarious. Like their version of Bane was awesome.
Oh God, no way!
It was awesome. Kite Man is in it. So I mean, there's just Penguin was in it. Oh man, I'm telling you, it's gonna be fun. If it's your thing, then you're really gonna love it. If it's not, you're probably not gonna like it. But that whole event was like in this. We got to see the Harley Quinn gallery stuff early, and you can see pictures of that on my Twitter and on BOF's Instagram, and I got to stand right behind Jim Lee himself while he drew this big Harley Quinn.
Wasn't that just like an amazing experience?
Oh my gosh, it was so good! Like, and you can even kind of follow along on the BOF Instagram, like almost like a time lapse thing. Well, they made a time lapse video, but you can see in my pictures how like just over the course of 45 minutes or whatever, it starts out as an outline, then there's like some shading, then there's some color, and then it's like this finished. Yeah, look, it absolutely did. Like during the course of that night, like this nothing canvas turned into this Harley Quinn, finished Harley Quinn. Like, and Jim Lee just did it in between talking to people and doing other, being part of the little presentations and stuff like that. So that was fun. They also announced a new show called Bizzaro TV, which I think that was described kind of as an anthology type of series where they could just kind of do whatever they want, where they can have animated segments, live action segments, or segments with puppets. And they talked about having an ambush bug segment or something. But the thing that I remember
ambush bug.
Yeah. And the thing that I remember the most is they said something about they could have like a space cabbie segment where they could have the example they gave was like Space Cabbie's driving around space, and then he picks up somebody, and it's Jim Lee, and it's like the real, like, you know, live action real Jim Lee. They have a discussion, and then they drop Jim Lee off somewhere, and then animated Green Lantern comes in, and then they have a discussion with him. So it kind of seemed like DC Universe's version of Space Ghost Coast to Coast. So, which I'm all down for. That just seems cool, and it's just more variety and all that. So I'm super down with that.
I loved watching episodes of Space Ghost. So if it's anything near that,
yeah,
I'm in for it.
Yeah. There was also another kind of interesting thing they announced about. It's called it was like DCU Unscripted, where they're going to have like a competition contest where people are going to get to submit ideas for an upcoming DC Universe show, and they're going to have like a competition, and the people that win, the team that wins, is going to make a pilot for a show. So wow. that'll be kind of interesting.
Cool. It's really cool.
And the last thing that they did was they brought out Crypto, the real Crypto from Titans, and they let us take our picture with him. So you can see me.
Did you get it signed
on Twitter? I didn't get it signed, but on my Twitter feed, you can see me posing for a picture with the real Crypto. So it was pretty cool. And that was like one day. Yeah, that was like one of the days.
That was day one. That was
day one.
But hold on, you're skipping the most important part of day one.
Wait, what?
What did you buy on day one of Comic-Con?
I bought everything on day one. What didn't I buy on day one?
What's the most cherished possession you bought on day one?
So on day one, I made my way to Artist Alley, and so I brought a whole stack. I'll just say this: I brought a whole stack of comic books to the con, and I ended up getting at least a signature on every single book. Some of the bigger ones that I wanted multiple signatures on, I didn't get, but I got a heck of a lot of signatures, and I got to meet a lot of, the artists and writers and that I've wanted to meet, and got them to sign stuff. So I got to meet like Eddie Barrows, who did, as you know, a big portion of James Tynion's Detective Comics run that we've covered here on this show, that we're big fans of, and I bought my very first piece of original comic book art from Eddie Barrows, and it was a 2-page spread from part 1 of A Lonely Place of Living, which was cool because it was like this combined piece of it was like regular pencils and inks with Copic marker, Tim Drake's on 4 quadrants on the corners. So that was probably the coolest thing I got at the convention. Lots of Drake going on. Yeah. So I did that, and I also commissioned a sketch cover from David Barron, who was a colorist on the Black Mirror. So that was pretty awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
not bad, Mr. Haas, for day one.
Yeah. Good grief. What have we done? So
what
day
haven't
2.
we done?
Yeah, I know. Day 2 was fun. So, the big thing that we did as a BOF group on day 2 was we covered the Wonder Woman Bloodlines press. So we got to find out about that film and talk to a lot of the talent and crew involved with it.
James Tucker, Justin Copeland, who else?
Almost everybody.
We got a lot of good interviews. The screenwriter,
Margaret Scott.
Yes, she was there.
She was really good. I really liked talking to her, getting her answers about certain things. And because we're BOF, you're definitely going to want to watch the interviews, because I asked Wonder Woman questions. Me and Pete interviewed traded off on the interviews, but I did try to like slip in some Batman questions here and there. So when I do talk to Meggerhead Scott about about the screenplay, I do ask her a Batman question.
Well, I mean,
and it was I loved her answer. Yes, yeah, and Justin Copeland. That's his name, right? Justin Copeland.
Yes.
He was, of course, the director of Batman Hush, which just came out, and he's a co-director on this Wonder Woman movie. And it was great to kind of, thank him for working on Batman Hush and and picking his brain about it. He was really curious to hear what we thought about Hush because, I guess,
it's controversial.
It is controversial, and just hearing people on the internet is, only gets you to a point. But so
you also got to speak to the legend himself, James Tucker.
Yes, I got to speak to James Tucker, which was
one of my
great.
Favorite BOF perks of all time, James Tucker, Sam Lowe.
Yeah. Those dudes are great, and I've kind of interacted with James on Twitter a little bit, and getting to meet him in person and just pick his brain for a few minutes was great. It was a good time.
Yeah. And that was your first press event for BOF. And
yes.
You didn't realize how insane they could be.
Yes, and neither did you. You said it was the worst one you've ever had to cover.
But I was like, I at least had you prepped a little bit. I was like, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to move fast. We're going to claim our ground. And I was like,
and then none of that happened.
None of that happened. I was like, then I had you improvise.
Yeah, it worked out.
But
mostly.
It was fun. We had a good time, which is the most important thing. It's great to speak to some of these guys, these people who just have been so influential about our fandom. James Tucker has essentially crafted my fandom. He's one of those guys. And it's just an honor and a pleasure. And it's like, I can't thank Bill enough for the opportunity to do that twice that weekend.
Yeah. We'll get to that one.
It's so great. It's so great. It's one of my favorite things that Bill allows me to do.
Yep. That same day on Friday, we got to see Michael Uslan's panel on Batman 89, which was the second time we saw him that day.
Yes,
we just ran into him in Artist Alley, so we got to.
It helps when you're wearing a BOF T-shirt. I'll tell you that much. If you want to approach Mr. Uslan. It doesn't hurt, but Mr. Uslan remembered me, and he did. He couldn't help but tell us how much he loves BOF and what we do and everything Bill does, and it's just
it's gratifying.
It is.
It was great.
It's coming from him. It means a lot, that he knows how passionate we are and how much we actually care. And that's just, again, that's just one of those things where it's like you can't just put into words what it feels like to hear him say that.
Yeah, it was great to meet him in person and then see his panel later on that night on Batman 89 because, it was some of the stuff we've heard before, but he got into some things that that was news to me, such as he mentioned that whenever he heard that the Batman's origin was going to be changed to have the Joker be the killer of the Waynes, that he went to Bob Kane and got Bob Kane's opinion on it.
Yeah.
And Bob Kane, of course, said something along the lines of I love that. That's a great idea. If we had come up with Batman and the Joker at the same time, we probably would have also have done that. Because that makes so much sense or something.
Yeah, that's one of those things where fanboys go crazy about, And meanwhile, the one of the creators, Bob Kane, signed off on it, and you're just kind of like, oh wow,
yeah.
And I've watched the DVDs, so I've heard the stories. I interviewed Mr. Uslan for BOF 20, but they never get old. There's something about those stories about how he got 89 made, how he was relentless, how he was Batman's Batman. They just you're like, oh, this guy, if he wasn't persistent, we wouldn't be where we are. There would be no Batman on film. Yeah. So, it's
the
just
website or the real thing.
Just hearing how he made up some story on the spot about the shadow, which eventually led to him writing detective, which eventually led to just the steps and the breadcrumbs and how one thing led into another, and how everything was so integral, and how he was always in the right place at the right time and always making the most of his situation, taking advantage of whatever was given to him. Yeah. It's a really great story. It really is.
And we saw him a third time on the Sunday. He was doing an autographing because he has a new version of his memoir out, The Boy Who Loved Batman, which has the whole story, all the stories, and there's a new section in it that like a new afterword or whatever that takes you all the way up to the release of Joker. So we got to have that stuff signed, and we both have 2 of the 3 issues of Detective that he wrote or co-wrote.
We're trying to finish our Uslan trilogy.
Yeah, but we were able to get him to sign those comics, and that's cool.
Yeah, he also signed my Detective number 27. Was another book that he wrote. Mm-hmm. So I have a wonderful collection of Uslan books, and I'm looking forward to reading The Boy Who Loved Batman.
I had
it's
my
be a really great experience.
Yeah, I brought my original hardcover first edition, and I also bought the new edition, and I had him sign both of it. And yes, it's a great book for sure. It's a great book.
And while we were online, we met a fan of BOF, Zach.
We're not making this up either.
He was and he turned around and he saw my shirt and he was like, "Are you a Batman fan?" Like, "Yeah." And he's like, and we, I introduced him, and Eric was there. I introduced myself, and it was cool to see, just someone who's like, "Hey, I like what you're doing. I like what you're saying." It's like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
There are more nice people out there, not all the jerks on Twitter.
Yeah, like he even hit us up on Instagram and stuff. He's like, I ran into you guys in line and stuff. And
he saw Joker and he loved it too. So listen to Zach.
Yeah, exactly. That's fun when you meet somebody like that, and they're actually they actually have heard of the site and they're a fan or whatever, and they just want to chat and stuff, and it's a good interaction. I love that kind of stuff.
That was great.
So on the main thing, Saturday was a little light. The main thing we did, other than the Joker watch party, was that we got to go interview people involved in the new book, Batman: The Definitive History of the Dark Knight in Comics, Film, and Beyond.
Oh, it was so
which was great because we got to interview the author, Andrew Farago, and the cover artist, John Guydo. And we interviewed them for this podcast. So after we're done talking here in a minute, you will hear our interview with them about the book.
From the Comic-Con floor.
From the Comic-Con floor.
You'll be at Comic-Con with us.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Just close your eyes and imagine that you're in the con. We just imagine me and Pete. We
surrounded by cosplay, action figures, and comic books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and wall to wall people. We brought our Yeti mic in and just plugged it up straight to a phone. And try to get as good audio quality as we can, and we're just passing the Yeti mic back and forth. So just keep that in your mind when you listen to it. So
this book is really phenomenal. We received a copy to look at before we did the interview.
Yes, it doesn't come out for a few more weeks, but they were selling early copies, pre-release copies at the convention.
And if you're obviously Batman on film, if you're a real diehard film fan, there's so many good little nuggets in here.
Yeah, there's like concept designs, art that's never been seen and stuff.
And it's like a lot of Schumacher stuff. And and even the writer goes into Schumacher's potential third film, and there's a little bit of that. And for me, I find that stuff so fascinating. So that's well worth the book alone, in my opinion. And it's just, there's so many other good things. I mean, first of all, the cover art is great too, because it's like this just epic collage of everything Batman, from like Lego Batman to Rise. It's just, and then everywhere in between, it's just got a little bit of everything. So there's a lot of love, and there was a lot of care that went into this. Like this wasn't just put together for your money. These guys did a lot of work on this, and it really shows. It reaps through the pages. Like, it's just fantastic.
Yeah,
and all the inserts and all the extra.
Yeah, there's all. Yeah, it's a book, and it's a giant, heavy, definitive feeling book, And yeah, like you said, there's all kinds of cool extra little freebies and interactivity built into the book, and we talk a little bit about that in the interview. So definitely check that out. Oh, and I think Ryan Lauer's going to have. I think he's doing the full review on BOF of the book when it comes out. And Bill has also got a pre-release copy, and you can see it, and you can watch a little video of Bill kind of flipping through it and on the BOF's YouTube channel. So we're kind of hitting that book from all angles.
And it's well worth it. I mean, it is a true love letter. I mean, if you're a historian of the character,
yes,
this is up there with any wall book you can buy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a book that demands. It's a coffee table book that demands a good coffee table to put it on. So sturdy, it's always there. Sturdy. Yeah. So. So look forward to that interview, which will be, in this episode after we're done talking. And other than that, the big thing. Oh, on the Sunday, the last day of the con, Eric covered the Batwoman press room, which had a couple of stars from the show there. And I don't know if he's going to post a video from it, but he's at least going to be...
he's doing a write-up.
He's going to do a write-up at least of some of the bigger things that they talked about in that press room. But while Eric was doing... And that show did also premiere that same Sunday. So it's out, and you and Eric are going to start theoretically covering it.
Together, we'll do our post-game show.
Your green room show?
Yes.
Are you going to rename it?
We're not in a green room. I'm not in a green room. I've moved, and there's no
That's
green
right.
rooms. So, the Batwoman postgame show with Pete and Eric. I guess that's as tentative as I got. But right. We will be back with our postgame show at some point. We'll probably do like a double feature and talk about episodes 1 and 2.
Right.
But
cool.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see. We're gonna get a Batman, another Batman show on TV. Really, really close after the last Batman related show is off TV. If you don't count Pennyworth, of course, which I still need to catch up on.
I don't have Epics. I got to find a way to get a hold of that.
You get the app and you pay for like a month of the app.
Okay.
Yeah, you can get it with an app. Right. You pay for a month and then just binge a show.
Interesting. Okay.
I think it's done now, but I'm not 100% on
I remember Joe Forno on Twitter was a fan of it.
Yeah, I almost watched the first episode, and I didn't. I think it's pretty entertaining from what I've seen so far. But that's just the first episode, though.
All right.
Which only usually means things can go up. Improve.
There was Gotham.
Yeah.
Things went down.
Moving on from that. So while Eric was doing the Batwoman press room,
we
me
did
and
Pete,
really
cool.
Yeah, we
really cool.
We
go on, tell him.
Okay, I'll tell him. It was definitely the highlight of the con for me in terms of what we got to cover. Is that might have heard that Batman Beyond is coming out on Blu-ray this month in October to celebrate and digital to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the show, and they were having a panel at the con. So they also had a press event. So me and Pete got to interview all the people that were there that were involved in Batman Beyond. The heavy hitters, the people that shaped and molded your childhoods, folks. So we got to talk to
everybody but Bruce Timm.
Yeah. So that means, what does that mean, Pete? That means we got to talk to Kevin Conroy,
Alan Burnett,
Andrea
Romano.
Yes.
Who else was there? Batman Beyond himself, Will Friedle.
Yes.
Who else did we do? James Tucker was there, of course.
James Tucker.
My favorite.
Yes.
And was that everybody? Is that
nope.
everybody? Who am I missing? Lauren Tom.
Yes.
Yeah, she was
who
there.
Played Dana Tan. Yes.
Yes, she was there.
So we got to speak to them, and that was a dream come true, to be honest.
It's just so, because it's that one part of like the Batman mythology that was born outside of the comics. Batman Beyond. So it's like,
Yeah,
it's got
and
like
it's-
this
and it's-
special place, and it like I grew up
and
with
it's
it.
and it's taken on a life of its own, and it's
Now it is a part of
reinserted
the
it.
comics.
It's a part of the exactly. Now it's got its own continuity.
He's
and
5
it's
volumes deep, and Dan Jurgens is doing wonderful on that one. By the way, go pick
Yeah,
that up.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was great
Yeah,
to
our
just
very
talk
own
to
Matt Whaley covers that book for the site.
Oh, and he does a fabulous job. But to talk to James Tucker, like I said earlier, it's like my favorite thing to do. The fact that I can actually pick this genius's mind, but it's just like to ask him directly, like, what does he think of what the comics are doing with Terry McGinnis and everything else that he basically helped create, and just to hear him what he says and how he says like everything's kind of like its own thing, and now it's like passing of the baton, and you know, obviously like you'll see the interviews. I have to edit them and post them. You'll get Wonder Woman first. Bill has those, so those will be up soon.
Yeah,
but I mean, just to hear what he has to say about certain things, it's just so gratifying, especially as a fan. You know?
Yeah, because it's not just Batman Beyond. We got to talk to him about a lot of other things too, because, you know, Tucker, he's been involved in a bunch of shows. Like, we got to talk to him twice that weekend. You know, I talked to him for Wonder Woman, and you talked to him for Batman Beyond, and yeah.
You know, you can't help but throw in a brave and a bold question or this or that, you know, just.
Yeah, I got him talking about like a potential Batman anthology series, like what he would want if there was going to be another, if there was going to be another Batman animated series, how he would want it to be structured and what he would want to do with it. And he definitely had some ideas, so maybe that's something that could happen.
But what was the biggest thing in this whole thing? What did you like? What was the moment? Ryan, the greatest moment of the con, the single-handed greatest moment of the con for you.
Was it when Batman gave me a hug?
Oh yeah, baby.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
Ryan got a hug from Kevin Conroy himself.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
Yeah, you'll see it on video, because I'm sure my face is as goofy and goopy as you could ask for, but it happened. It was great.
You talked to Batman.
I did.
You did.
I did. I got to talk to him about Batman Beyond and, you know, just being Batman, and we got to ask him about Crisis. Yeah, playing.
Spoilers. Don't tell him. Let him watch the video.
Oh yeah,
you can't find out. You got to watch. We can't ruin it all for
you. Watch the video. You know, I probably will also
post YouTube page.
Yeah, I'll probably also post the audio from all the panel, all the press room stuff as a podcast in one spot as well.
Oh, look at you getting fancy.
Yeah, that's the fancy thing. I think they deserve to be experienced one way or another. But I'll probably I'll post it after they're on YouTube. So of course, watch the YouTube stuff first. And
you gotta
video's
watch
great. But
yes, Ryan is quite the reporter. He did a good job his first time out.
It's my first time out, but it was fun to watch you do it too, because you're a little bit more seasoned. But it's fun to see people trip you up a little bit, you know, when you're talking to the two doctors, from Wonder Woman Bloodlines. It was fun to watch that.
So we were doing it one time, and we were rotating, and like there was this guy next to us, and he goes, "You guys are switching around?" I was like, "Yeah," and he goes, "Oh, geez, he's really good," and I was like, "Oh wow, someone thinks I'm really good at this. This is like really cool."
Yeah. So, and it's cool you've done this enough to where people recognize you, like Sam Liu. That was you told me that all weekend. Things. You're like Sam Liu.
I love his movies.
You're like, Sam Liu loves me. He thinks I'm the best, and I'm just like, Pete, you're just pulling my leg. But then when Sam Liu comes up, he's like, "Oh, Pete, from Babylon Film, I love you guys." Yeah. And he was like,
"Well, Sam's he's a member of our Facebook group, and he sees what we do.
That's amazing.
He is. Yeah."
Yeah.
So he sees all the hard work and all the love we put into our Batman, and he appreciates it.
Yeah. It was great to see you talking to him, because the first thing he was like, "Oh, you know, always good to talk to you." So
yeah. I mean, I love my oh man, right now my favorite Sam Liu movie is Suicide Squad: Hell to Pay. I love that movie.
You know,
it's so good.
After you told me that, or reconfirmed that its connection to Flashpoint, the Flashpoint paradox or whatever,
it's even better.
Dang it! I need to go back and just do like a double feature.
Oh, dude, it's so great.
Because I think they'll make each other, like one will make the other better, kind of deal.
Because like you're watching it for the first time, and you're like, okay, this animation looks familiar. Then all of a sudden, it's Zoom going through what's going on. And you're like, oh my god, this is a sequel to Flashpoint, and it just blows your mind because you're like, I didn't expect this.
Yeah,
I had no clue. So Sam Liu, I love you, man.
But yeah, so I can't wait to see. I'm excited to see that.
And then Romano, she gave great an interview too.
Man,
it was just.
I've always wanted to talk to her because she's like, yeah, literally, yeah. All the stuff she's done, she's worked so hard to put such. What's the best way to say this? Like emotion and like credibility to voice acting. Like she didn't treat any of the shows as like, oh, these are just for kids or these are just whatever, like she gets the right voices for the right jobs and always helps the actors find the truth of the moments that they're in. And man, so like some of the performances she was able to get for some of those shows are just fantastic. So yeah, getting to talk to her was awesome.
One thing we got from the con that I found so interesting was that James Tucker doesn't refer to Batman the Animated Series as BTAS, but BTAS.
BTAS.
He calls it BTAS, and I found that so interesting. I was like, well, that's what it's called, right? I mean, he's if I'm going to call it anything, I got to call it what he calls it.
I've heard people refer to it that way before.
I've never heard it the first time, and I was like, wow, okay. I never would have guessed that. I always say BTAS. That's just me, but it's BTAS.
Well, now you can say BTAS.
Yeah.
And know that you're correct.
100%.
Yeah. So, cool. So, I think at this point, I'm going to let the interview play between... Pete, did you get to ask questions during this interview?
No, I just did techie stuff.
Okay. So it's really just me asking questions.
It's Ryan's interview. I was just there.
Okay.
I was the crew.
And, just so everybody knows, we got this book on Friday, and it's big and it's heavy. And I carried it around. I carried it around all day at the con. And then our interview with these guys wasn't until Saturday. And then I carried it on Saturday all day through the con. And then I forgot to take it out of my bag to get him to sign it. And he was only there on Saturday. But
I did get Neil Adams' signature, so it made up for everything.
So did I. Yeah, I got Neil Adams to sign my comic book too. He signed Batman 244.
I think
so. I was pretty happy about that.
Batman Annual 14 with Two-Face on the cover. I think that's one of Bill's favorites.
I think it is too.
So I got that signed, Bill. If you want to make a donation, Peter Illustrated on Twitter.
Yeah. All right. So
there we go.
Sit back, relax, and listen to our interview at New York Comic Con 2019 about Batman: The Definitive History of the Dark Knight Comics Film and Beyond with author Andrew Farago and cover artist John Guydo. Enjoy. All right, this is Ryan Haas with Batman on Film. We are at New York Comic Con 2019 at the Inside Editions booth, and we are talking to some people heavily involved in this Batman Definitive History book, and we'll just get their thoughts on the book and how it was developed. So can we introduce ourselves?
Hi, I'm Andrew Farago. I am the co-author with Gina McIntyre of Batman: The Definitive History of the Dark Knight.
Hi, my name is John Guydo, and I'm the artist who did the cover.
Awesome. Well, let's start with the cover. Can you tell us a little bit about what your process was, trying to fit every era and iteration of Batman into one spot?
Yeah, it was kind of a challenging project. I mean, when they came to me, I had a bunch of different ideas in my head about, how am I going to approach this? I had an idea of doing a stained glass with little icon graphics demonstrating the different eras. But then I had this idea of what we ended up with, which was trying to incorporate it all into Gotham City. with Batman kind of looming over the top, maybe a little like a double exposure effect. And I kind of had the vision in my head of what I wanted, and it really turned out to be pretty much what I had in mind. But it was an interesting challenge to try to weave into the city, the different elements. So I figured I want different Batmobiles and different scenes from films, and we have Lego Batman in there. So it was one of the funnest projects I've ever worked on. Just for that reason, I really enjoy a challenge. So I really enjoyed it.
So you tried to incorporate I'm just audio, but we're looking at the poster here, or the cover here. Got a animated Batman, the Batwing from a lot of different movie things, Frank Miller Batman. Which things did you personally feel like you had to have on the cover?
Animated Batman had to be there. For me, it wasn't about like any one individual thing. It was more about making sure I had all the genres in there. You wanted the comic books and the film. There's a video game. Fans of the video game will notice the clock tower from the game. So that it was more important to make sure I covered all the bases in that respect. So I'm sure there are people out there that, why didn't you include this or why didn't you include that? A lot of the choice was made because it fit into the composition really well also. So Inside Edition seemed to like it, and Andrew seemed to like it, so I'm happy.
Awesome. I would definitely want to pick Andrew's brain. This book is enormous. It's gigantic. It definitely feels like it is trying to be definitive in terms of covering everything Batman. So how did this book come about, and how did you approach it initially?
So yeah, I'd done a few books for Inside Editions before this, including recently a 1980s animation history called Totally Awesome. And more importantly, the first book that I did for them was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Ultimate Visual History. And that was a book that it covered their entire history from the comic books to the cartoons to the merchandising to the movies. So all of it, every Ninja Turtles thing under two covers. And that was a big book, but the Turtles have just this small fraction of the history that Batman does. And the editor that I worked with on that book, Chris Prince, he called me up and said, I think it's time. It's the 80th anniversary. I think you're the guy. Let's do Batman. And I said yes before it really sunk in just how much work that was going to be. And I'm glad I did, but wow, that was a rough year.
Well, I was about to ask. The book is it's a big book. How long was it from beginning to end, developing it?
Okay, I spent about 3 solid months of doing research and interviews. So that's, fortunately, I'll say I had a 40-year head start as far as reading the comics, watching cartoons, watching the movies.
So you're already pretty familiar with a lot of the lore and stuff beforehand. You're a fan.
Oh yeah. So I saw the '89 movie in the theater. I watched every episode of the Adam West Show. I watched every Super Friends. Been buying Batman monthly for about 30 years now. So I didn't have to catch up too much, which was. It was a huge advantage, and I needed that because I had to spend, like I said, about 3 months conducting interviews, and I did almost 150 by myself, and my co-writer came in, and she did another dozen film and television and movie and merchandising targeted interviews at the end, so we could bring this thing in on schedule. But it's a beast.
Yeah. So being a fan and being exposed to Batman for so long, what kinds of holes or gaps in your knowledge or did you need to research, or what kinds of things jumped out at you when you were doing research that you didn't know or thought was really surprising that you were excited to put in the book?
So much talking to I talked to Joel Schumacher. And he's a fun interview. He's fun. And he knows his place in Batman history. He knows his place. He knows the perception from the fans. He owns up to it. He knows he knows what the reaction to his first Batman movie was versus his second movie. One of the exciting things was finding out from him how close we may have been to having a third Joel Schumacher Batman movie. So we talk about that a little bit in the book. I'm sorry the world never got Nicolas Cage as the Scarecrow or Madonna as Harley Quinn, but maybe that's for the best. We'll see. Yeah.
Going through the book, there's lots of like pieces of artwork and storyboards and concept art and things that aren't really readily available if you just do Google searches or whatever. Like, did you partner up with Warner Brothers and stuff to get things that haven't really been seen before, like, put into this book?
Yeah, I can't say enough nice things about Warner Brothers and DC and about what they, they gave us. They gave us. I don't know if unprecedented is quite the right word, but they give us so much access to material, and we approached it with we're fans too. We want to see. We don't want to see these same publicity photos that you see everywhere. We don't want to see the same stock shot of Batman from the animated series that you get every single time out. And they agreed with us. They said, let's do this. Let's make this a book to remember. Tim Burton was a huge help on that front, like giving us access to photos that people hadn't seen before. And and it knocks me out every time I look through it.
Was there anything that like you didn't expect to see that kind of even surprised you when you were getting this material for the book?
I think people are gonna be impressed by the movie treatment that we included in this book. This is and again when Bob Kane heard there was a live action movie in the works in the 80s, he or more likely he may have commissioned something, but he put together his own treatment, his own idea for what the Batman movie should be. He said it should be serious. It should be this dark, moody, mysterious movie. So we get to see his take on that. We had access to so much cool storyboard material from the movies and from animation, concept sketches. So much great stuff. I find I spent, like I said, months and months with this book, and I still find new surprises every time I flip through it.
One thing that really surprised me in the book is like it's not just a lot of text, a lot of dialogue, a lot of articles about the history and the photos and the information and the concept art, but there's also all this interactive element to the book with like fold out panels and like free stuff, and there's a big slot in the back of the book with all this extra stuff. Like, were you part of like crafting what that stuff is and like making that another layer of the experience of this book?
Okay, well, that's a specialty of Insight Editions, and they always go the extra mile with this, so that we find all the artwork, we find all the cool stuff, and every book that I've done with them, we find about I'd say at least 20% more artwork than we can actually reasonably fit into a book. And the solution for that, more often than not, is let's do a tip-in, let's do an insert, let's do, you get your own Batman mask in this book, you get your own. My favorite thing was we did this exact replica of the 1960s Batman fan club card. So you can send, if you and your friends both buy books, you can send coded messages to each other. Using the secret Batman code. So things like that. It's so cool for me as a fan to go through and see, just going the extra mile, and the design team just outdid themselves on this.
Cool. So I guess one last thing that really jumped out to me, and I think even on Twitter when you were promoting the book, it seemed like we were all really excited about was, I'm going to butcher this, but there's like a forward and a preface, and there are three like introductions to this book by Dennis O'Neil and Michael Keaton and Kevin Conroy. Can you talk a little bit about how those came about and what you feel they add to the book?
Yeah, well, we wanted people to know and I've done books like this before, and I know people approach them like, this is just going to be the comics, or you're just going to talk about the movies. You're just going to, and even when the book was announced, I saw some of that chatter online from people saying,
how definitive can it really be, kind of stuff.
I pulled out my magnifying glass, and I don't see enough of Zack Snyder's Batman on that cover, or and also the 1940s Batman serial, the 1943 and 1949 Batman serials, and it's like, well, John didn't want to kill himself, and we didn't want to bombard you with like just this absolutely every last total thing, but we wanted to find a way to communicate that, like, this is comprehensive, this is everything. So we said, who's the top guy in comics? Like, who's more closely associated with Batman in comics than anybody else? And for me, that was Denny O'Neil. That's somebody whose career, he redefined the character in the 70s, and then as an editor in the 80s through the 90s. One of the amazing things about my research was spending probably close to 4 hours on the phone with him, just everything from his childhood, pulling a little red wagon around his neighborhood and trading comics with other neighborhood kids, all the way through his tenure as Batman editor in the 90s. So it's like, okay, we got comic books covered with Denny, and then so we said, what about Batman the Animated Series? Paul Dini's written intros. Bruce Timm generally does not want to write intros. I've asked him before. He politely declined when I asked him if he was interested in writing something for my Harley Quinn book that I wrote for Insight. So we said, what about Batman himself? Let's ask Kevin Conroy. And he jumped at the chance. I don't think I don't think he's written anything like this before, so I was thrilled to have him on board for it. So it's like, boom, we got animation covered, because he's, for almost 3 decades, that's Batman. So you can't get more definitive than that. And then my editor and I were talking, and we talked with Mark Irwin, who's another editor at Insight, and we just said, let's shoot for the moon. Let's ask Michael Keaton, like, he's Batman to a generation. And we were floored. He said yes, and he wrote a beautiful piece on his. I was thinking, that's 30 years ago. He said his piece then. He hasn't talked all that much about Batman in the years since. And total long shot, but we must have asked on the right day, or we had the.
You got lucky. It's a beautiful introduction.
Yeah, and I was. I was so overwhelmed by getting that. And when you have 3 people who are so, 3 people who so much define Batman, like, who are so clearly, so strongly connected to the character. When you have 3 people like that willing to do that for you, use all 3. Like, you don't say, maybe this one we'll save this one for the website, or we'll do that. It's like, no, all 3 on the cover. Yeah, I couldn't be prouder of how it all turned out.
Awesome. Well, I think we want to wrap up this little conversation. Can you tell us, like, when the book, we're at Comic-Con and you can get it now here, but can you tell us when the book is going to come out, and if you have any final thoughts, or if there's anything you want to plug, like on social media or anything like that?
Yeah. So yeah, if you missed your chance here at New York Comic-Con, and it's selling fast. Your next early opportunity to buy the book is going to be October 19th at the Cartoon Art Museum in San Francisco. So that's my day job, and I'm putting together an exhibit of Batman movie costumes that'll be on display there. And we're going to have Sam Hamm, the writer of the '89 Batman movie, making a rare public appearance. So if you go to cartoonart.org, you can check that out. And then the book is in stores worldwide on October 29th, and look for John's amazing cover. And I'm so glad that's out there, that's the first thing people are going to see when they're looking up this book, because it's just like the 3 people I mentioned writing the intro and the foreword and the preface. John just nailed Batman. He summed it up so perfectly in one image there.
Awesome. Well, John, do you have any final thoughts or want to plug anything?
Just want to say I'm thrilled to be a part of this project and working with Andrew and Inside Editions. It was just kind of a dream project to work on, and if anyone wants to see more of my work, you can see, well, obviously this book. Inside the book, I have another piece at the beginning of the book for a poster I did for Batman The Long Halloween. And you can check out more of my work on Instagram, John Guydo, JohnGuydo.
Awesome. Well, I think that does it for this little miniature edition of the Batman on Film podcast, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Okay, we are back from that interview. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to it, and I just thought we'd get some final thoughts on the con and do some plugs. So for me, I thought the con was great. I'm super glad, Pete, that you put the little thought in my head to do it, because I'm glad you encouraged me to do it. And I think
I am too, because it's a lot easier to do these interviews with two people. It's very difficult doing it by yourself.
Yeah, I could definitely attest to that.
That's why they're usually blurry, guys. It's not because I'm that kind of a camera, it's just because I'm all by myself.
Yeah, either that or people bumping into your camera during your
camera needs a bodyguard. You can't,
Yeah, I definitely learned a thing or two.
These press junkets are cutthroat.
Yeah, I learned a thing or two. So it'll be fun. I'll have to do something. I'll have to do this again, and it was a great time. It's fun to be able to interface with fans and people that you look up to and respect, creators. Yeah, we got to talk to Tony Daniel and got him to sign some books, and it was great. He pricked our brains on what comics, what we thought about current comics and stuff.
He didn't like the New 52 either.
Is that what he said?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes,
man.
That's a lot of people said, so he's not alone.
Yeah, that's cool. And I got to talk to him a little bit about Batman next year, because he's going to be the main artist on Batman when it after Tom King's run is up.
Man, does he draw a beautiful Batman.
Yes. Yeah, he's kind of a good mainstay kind of artist ever since
artist and writer. I think he's a good writer.
Yeah, I think he's pretty underrated, to be honest.
He's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Like Battle for the Cowl isn't my favorite thing, but I enjoy the did he write all of Battle for the Cowl by himself?
I believe so. It's 3 parts.
What I really enjoyed though was his regular solo Batman arc. And he was writing and drawing it there for a while. And that first issue of his run where he was the solo everything guy is one of the books I had him sign. So
very affordable signature, by the way. He doesn't rob you. It's $20.
It's $10 per book.
Oh, so there you go. 2 books is $20.
Yeah. No, it's totally worth it. And he was super nice, and it's great to meet him in person. And yeah.
But I love the con. Second year covering it for the website. It's so much fun. Shout out to Gary, super PR guy on Twitter, for hooking us up with the interviews. Mm-hmm. Gary's a legend, and he's got the greatest shirt collection you've ever seen. It was just a blast for the Joker watch party, because Joker was great. Just seeing all our friends and making new friends, and just the normal Comic-Con cluster craziness that goes around. Toon Barn. Akasan was there.
It made it worth it.
See, Comic Book Debate was there. We met up with them, so it's like it's cool just to meet people that we talk to on Twitter so often. That they're just text, but put voices to faces and get an actual feel like who these people are. It's one of the best things about Comic-Con and just fandom is how we were able to unite and just hang out and just talk about the stuff we love, which is dudes running around with towels around their necks and their underwear outside their pants, jumping off rooftops.
Yeah,
so it's just cool. It's fun. Creatives: Neil Adams, Tony Daniel, Mr. Uslan, Martin Morazzo, Ice Cream Man. I get his signature every year. Who else do we meet? Gilliam March signed some books. It's just
got the Marcus Toe and Fabian. I always butcher his name, but like Fabian Nicieza. of course, he's better known as the co-creator or creator of Deadpool, but I was there to get him to sign my Red Robin book. And
he was extremely thrilled to do that.
He was thrilled. He was like, oh, it was like 5:30. The thing closed at 6 or whatever. He was like, oh my God, you're my first Red Robin of the day. Thank you. I love it when people, like that series. So mine. Yeah, like he was great to talk to. He said he had, maybe a little spoiler. Maybe I'm sure that Rob Myers won't me to spill this on the Drake, but. He said that he had, so I think that Red Robin series ran for like 26 issues or something. He said that he had 75 issues plotted out for that series.
Oh, I wish he would have done it. It was great. It was a great.
I told him I could have read 100 issues like that because, especially in retrospect, it's like, man, that was a good.
Yes, it was.
That's
it was
a good run.
Comic-Con was just overall an utter excess. BOF NYCC 19 is the hashtag. Be sure to check that out for all our content.
Yes. Or 2019. I think most of my hashtag I did. Well, I did both. Search both BOF NYCC 19 and BOF NYCC 2019. I did a bad job of not sticking to one, or just go to my Twitter and look at my pinned tweet, and you'll see all the images and stuff. So yeah, you got anything to plug? Mr. Verra?
Nothing really. Pete Illustrated on Instagram, Twitter, and Vero. Got Wonder Woman Bloodlines interviews coming up. Latest review of Detective Comics with Mr. Freeze by Mr. Tomasi, which is really awesome. Like these last 2 Freeze issues have been really awesome. Guys, you gotta read this book if you're not reading it. Detective's crazy. That's up on BOF proper. And that's it really. So just reap the benefits of us attending Comic-Con.
Awesome. I'm totally going to I'm probably going to forget or leave somebody out that something awesome we did or somebody we met. But we also did meet Aaron and Chris from the Fanboy Garage.
Oh, yes, we did. Those guys are great. I love those guys.
Yeah. I was trying to talk to them like all weekend.
We ran into them right after our interview.
Yeah. Aaron was texting me like the whole weekend, like trying to make our schedules align to where we could run at each other. And and after the interview, I was like, we need somebody to take our picture.
And then Aaron comes out and he's like, here, I'll take your phone. And I recognize him. And I'm like, why am I giving this stranger my phone? And then I realized who it was.
I was like, yeah, that's Aaron. He's like, oh, what the hell? Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. But I have a thing to plug. So I think most of the people that listen to this show should know Chris Clow and Paul Herman. So they have a new podcast, and it's called the Comic Binge Podcast. You can follow that on Twitter at Binge Comic, and it's all they're covering. They're on they've got 3 episodes out now, and the whole concept behind that show is that they cover comics. They cover actual comics instead of just comic book news. They actually cover books
with 2 greater comic book minds.
Yeah, they cover comics and runs and it's all things that you can find on subscription services. So if you have Marvel Unlimited or DC Universe, you can just hop on, read the stuff, and then listen to their show. And their 3rd episode is Joker focused because of the new Joker movie, and I was on that show as a guest. I was their very first guest, so it's a good time. So definitely, you can find them on Twitter at Binge Comic, and on Apple Podcasts or whatever at it's just called the Comic Binge. So give that a shot because it is a good time, and they deserve the props because those are good dudes.
Real good dudes.
So do that. Follow me on Twitter at SMB_Ryan. Follow Everyone Loves the Drake at ELTD Podcast. Follow Azrael Podcast at Azrael Podcast. And just stay tuned for the next episode, which will be our big old in-depth discussion on the Joker movie.
Mr. J.
There's no Harley Quinn. Oh God, please, no Harley Quinn solo movie. Wait, we're already getting that.
And it's going to be really good too.
It is. All right. So, I guess that'll wrap it up. For Pete, I'm Ryan. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Hey now! You've been listening to the Batman on Film podcast, a proud member and the sponsor of the Batman Podcast Network, BatmanPodcastNetwork.com. You can listen to the BOF Podcast on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, TuneIn, and wherever good podcasts like this one can be found. Want to advertise on the BOF Podcast? Go to advertisecast.com/the Batman on Film Con podcast. Follow Jet on Twitter at Batman on Film and on BOF's Facebook fan page at facebook.com/jet.batmanonfilm. Email Jet via jet@batman-on-film.com. I'm announcer Rachel. Thanks for listening.